All right. Here.
Remember me?
I can do this.
I'm stealing some of your microphone.
That's okay. I turned it off.
You turned it off? Good. Well, Cliff told me how to turn it on.
Now, Aaron, he was told that he had 2 minutes. Kevin told me I had 5. So that means you can go about 15, and that still gives me about 30.
So we're good. If I can do it too, I'll do it too. My name's Lisa, and I have the privilege of working with Kevin, and I'm not on your program. We have some mutual friends who couldn't be here tonight, and they know that typically at a wake or funeral that there's time for sentiments to be given to the person who has passed away or not in this case. And so they emailed it to me, and I said, well, if there's a time for that, I'll be glad to read it for you. If there's not, I'll give it to him. But then I read it, and I'm like, whether there's time or not, you need to hear it. It was very, very sweet. So I invited myself up because I know Donnie, and I figured Donnie wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of his microphone time. So Kevin, I wish I could say I read this because it's pretty good. But this is some love from Norm and Vicki Baloo. Kevin, you have been such an important influence on the lives of our children, Julie and Matt, and so many others. The highlight for us was this last summer when you helped baptize Matt, and then the next day married Matt and Sharice. Unlike so many adults, you aren't afraid to ask teenagers the hard questions. You are willing to spend quality time with an age group that many older people seek to avoid unless absolutely necessary. We know there have been times when you wondered whether you were making any difference at all. One of our favorite Kevin Brissett quotes occurred at just such a time. You asked Norm, why am I spending money I don't have on kids who don't care? The people here at your wake tonight prove, and those of us who couldn't be here tonight at your wake know that you have. When Ralph Waldo Emerson defined success, he must have had you in mind. To laugh often and love much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the admiration of honest citizens and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give of oneself, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a worship song, or fighting an arrogant system, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exaltation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Because this is a wake for a living person, here's our Irish toast to you. On days when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the memories of your students past and yet to come dance to balance you. When you see the ghost of loss through a gray window, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken you a meadow of delight. When all is lonely and dark, may there come across the waters of friendship a path of yellow moonlight to bring you back to those you love and who love you in return. May clarity of life be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to warm your life. Love, Vicki and Norm.
My name is Donnie Veverka, and I too have a connection to Walla Walla College, where I'm currently employed. And I wasn't there when Kevin was there. I don't have enough gray hairs to prove that. But it was in my second senior year that I met my beautiful wife, who I married up, and have absolutely loved the last 9.5 years, every moment with. And Selena is my date tonight, of which I couldn't have asked for anyone better. But Selena, thank you for being here. And it's funny, Kevin, because you and Selena are more alike than probably any two other people I know. And that, it gives me strength and it gives me courage to know that God has placed people around me that not only call me to the character of life, but hold me accountable to it. And so thank you. But this is perhaps the only time in our lives that we will be at a wake and the name seems appropriate. Because the dude who's supposed to be dead is actually still awake. And I warned Kevin when he started planning this shindig that it could turn into a roast too easily. And with that being said, let's continue. When I arrived at Walla Walla College in the fall of '91, I didn't know that I would eventually end my tenure there as a theology student. I began in the business department, and I spent 3 years until at the end of my junior year I realized I hated my business classes and that I actually did not want to follow, I apologize, Aaron, in my father's footsteps in the long-term care industry, but I wanted to do theology. And when I switched to theology and I extended my time there for an additional 3 years, I successfully crammed 4 years of college into 6. And I learned some names while I was there. One of those names was Bobby McGee, of such fame that I'm sure most of you are familiar. And the other was Kevin Brusette. And it brought joy into my heart to look into my theology teachers' eyes, teachers who had taught Bobby and Kevin, and say things like, when I grow up, even though I didn't know these guys, when I grow up, I want to be just like Bobby and Kevin, and the fear that would come across their face. Doug Clark, who was dean of the department at the time, at one point when I was sitting in his office, he was concerned about the volume of C's that were on my transcript. And I said, hey, Kevin and Bobby are doing just fine. He looked at me in all seriousness and said, don't say that. Now, Kevin Brusette is one of the biggest people I know. And I'm an average-sized guy, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about weight. I'm just talking about the stature of the man and the stature of his character. When I give Kevin a hug, my ear plants firmly against his pectoral muscle. He's one of the biggest people I know. Now, Kevin's been on this weight loss kick for the last several years. I mean, he's been working out with John Mack, I think, once or twice a week. Is that the deal? When they get to it? And it's not the weight that I'm talking about. It's the whole package. Watching those pictures, even when you were little, you were big. Actually, I wondered where you got all those black and white pictures of Bodie and Caden. That was weird. The guy is tall, he's broad-shouldered, his noggin and his feet are huge. Finding clothes has to be tough. He's the reason Nordstrom Rack has that rack of ginormous-sized shoes. You know those shoes, guys? You know what I'm talking about. Those shoes that you wander through when your wife is spending way too much time in those endless racks, and you think, who wears those shoes? It's this guy. Those shoes that you can put your shoes in and wander around and pretend like you're a clown. Maybe I'm the only one. But it's that guy. Kevin's so big, I borrowed his car a few weeks ago. It took 20 minutes for the powered seat to move far enough forward that I could touch the pedals. Kevin is so tall that when he picks up his kids, their ears pop. Now, Selena's grandfather, in his old age, he went crazy. And he would wait for Selena's grandmother to sit down in her favorite chair before he would ask her to do something for him. And usually it was after she had fallen asleep. On one such occasion, the whole family was over, and when Grandma fell asleep, Grandpa reached out with his cane, as was his custom, and he poked her. Usually he would just want a glass of water, fully capable to get it himself. But this time, Grandma decided to play possum. And as she silently just kept her composure as he poked harder and harder with that cane, eventually he gave up and slid back into the cushions of the couch and sighed to the rest of the room, I hope she's not dead. I heard it costs $200 just to dig the hole. If it costs $200 to dig a hole for a little old lady, Kevin, it's going to cost at least 3 times that to dig a hole big enough for you. Now, Kevin, when you finally do buy the farm, or kick the bucket, or bite that big green weenie, but in all seriousness, we hope that you won't do it for a long time. But when you finally do decide to take a dirt nap, we're all going to get together and we're going to remember old stories. We're going to raise a glass and shed tears, and we're going to say that Kevin Brissette was one SOB. He could make us laugh, he could make us cry, and he could sing. And that dude was so big he could kill a bear or a shark or a bear carrying a shark with his bare hands. So here's the Kevin Brissette. The thing I will always remember about Kevin is his generosity. If you hang out with Kevin, you'll soon learn that there is such a thing as free lunch. When you go out to eat with Kevin, if you're going to pick up the tab, you better be Johnny on the spot and quick on your toes, because he will sneak payment before you even know. Kevin has generosity that's as big as he is. His generosity is a byproduct of his graciousness. Kevin has taught me that I want to be gracious too, that I want to be generous, that I want to give free lunches just because I can. And why stop at lunches? Kevin hasn't. He gives in so many ways that we don't have time to tell all the stories. I may not be as big a guy, but I can have as generous a heart. And Kevin, when you are actually gone, I want your generosity to live on through me. The ancient origins of the wake were to sit around and see if life would come back to the body of the deceased. But since Kevin is already alive, perhaps the point of this wake is to wait and see if life will come back to us. So Kevin, here's to you. Peace.